of course, if such confidential information is completely false or spoil all kinds of strategy of military intervention, this is really nonsense to disclose such information. We are happy to disclose such information, but as much as possible, we are happy to disclose the information, because without such information, we cannot get the true pure consent of the citizens. That is the stance from our side of the South. Sorry, two things to talk. First of all, we are going to tell you why, when the democracy requires the referendums or the pure consent of the citizens, and second of all, why especially the military interventions require the pure consent of the citizens, why such military interventions risk and damage the people's livings. So first, about the nature of referendums. We say that democracy requires the people's pure consent and have to ask the people's to-do wills about the really influential issues, influential decisions in the democracies. Simply because the consent from the citizen is a really important concept in the democracies, because without having such a consent with the government, for example, or the societies cannot require the citizens to receive the massive amounts of the damages from such kind of decision. At the same time, it is really unreasonable to push the risk of receiving huge amount of the harm by this kind of big decisions in the future, for example. Therefore, we say that as long as such kind of big decisions requires a really huge damage against citizens, at the same time there is a huge risk against the citizens. In such a cases, we require the consent from the citizens in the very first place. The analogy from our side is amendment of the constitutions, because if we change such kind of constitutions, the citizens' life will be hugely influenced by such kind of a constitution, because they might be receive the limit of the freedom of the speech, the freedom of the movement or whatever. Therefore, we say that in the case of the amendment of constitutions, we say that military intervention is really hugely affect the citizens' livings, and it's really risky choices for the democracies. Move on to my second point, why the military intervention requires a pure consent, and why that kind of thing is damaging the lives and really risky choices for the democracies. So first of all, we say the military intervention is really costing a lot of people's life in the very first places. As long as you start to conduct a military intervention, you necessarily have to kill the other persons living in the foreign countries to to seek for your causes that make the military intervention in the very first places. As long as such a military interventions have to make the conflict between two parties, in such a cases necessarily such government have to cost the nation's life in the very first place. And more importantly, normal citizens also have to bear the huge risk of such a military intervention, because if we start to make the military intervention, there is always a risk from revenge from the other kind of countries, for example, terrorism from Afghanistan or Iraq, for example. Therefore, we say that as long as taking the military intervention is really dangerous, at the same time really risky choices for the citizens that require the pure consent of the citizens. And the second harm of military intervention is that there is huge financial cost in the very first places. We say that as long as we are going to, government are going to make the military intervention, they have to send huge amount of the weapons or huge amount of the tanks to the foreign countries. We say that is simply really financially costful. At the same time, you have to hire the really huge number of the fighters in the military intervention. That is always coming from the taxations from the citizens, and that is a big, huge budget consumptions in the very first places. That is purely requires the citizens' consent. What is the exclusive points of the military interventions? If we look at the history of military interventions, the characteristic of military intervention is that it is very hard things to retreat from such kind of countries. The case is that the Iraqi war, for example, the Bush administrations, the Obama administrations take a lot of time to retrieve from such kind of situations. Sorry, because in the very first place, the military intervention require the technical, military intervention itself is technically retrieved from the foreign country, requires the technical strategies from that in the very first place. Because if they going to go back to the home country, in such a case, they have to protect their own lives in the very first place. At the same time, they strategically think about what is the safety points to make the next point to retrieve and go back to the home country, ladies and gentlemen. instrument. That is technically difficult and take a lot of time in the very first place. And the second logic why the retreat from this kind of country is really harmful is that local citizens require the existence of a big power like the United States or the Britain, for example. In such kind of situations, even if the home country citizens don't want to stay, don't want to keep the military interventions, that by the influence of the other countries, peoples, they have to keep military in the foreign countries. We say that is completely against the people's wills, and in such a cases, we say that beforehand, the government have to require the consent, have to get agreement in the risk and the damages which might visit the future potential citizens, ladies and gentlemen. So we propose.
I thank PM for your speech. Now we call upon LO here.
The two things coming from opening government. One, the cost a lot, military intervention cost a lot. First of all, we deny this context because the current situation, military intervention, is done by the big wealthy countries such as USA. Such countries have already the artificial weapons. That is why the cost a lot doesn't occur. For example, people don't die, or the monetary monetary resources don't so much cost. That is why we deny this part. But secondly, they talked about the big decision is necessary for democracy. Well, first of all, military, especially the military intervention, even if citizens' opinion is important, in terms of military intervention, the consequence is very important. That is why we oppose this model. The stance coming up from opening opposition is that we denied the national referendum in terms of military intervention, but actually we allow changing the constitution or something like that. This is because the constitution is about the citizens, but military intervention is not about the citizens. Rather than that, it is about the other countries' things, right? That is why we actually think that the parliament or government should decide. So those are the stance. So let me go on to the refutation to opening opposition side. Firstly, they say people die, and as I told you, additional weapon is the main way to kill others, right? That is why they don't die. But even if some people die, the possibility is almost of same case of military going to military go to the helping the disaster people. That kind of possibility is only exists in the current situation. But also they say cost a lot. First of all, we think that referendum itself is actually cost a lot to decide those kind of things, right? That is rather deciding by president or presidential office is better and first. We think that is why their argument is not important so much. So things to say two things to say in my arguments. Firstly, Western is not the best actor in terms of military intervention. But secondly, for a president or government can deal with those problems. Firstly, about the citizens is not the best actors. Ladies and gentlemen, we strongly believe that. Actually, ordinary citizens cannot consider the military intervention rationally, right? Two reasons. Firstly, they don't have enough information. They might have the information coming from the media, such as Asahi newspaper or other kinds of newspapers, but sometimes those information are actually distorted by the media, by the SNS, or by the social networks, right? Such as people who want to really oppose to go to the wars, they post a lot of information war is totally bad thing, but other way citizens think terrorism is so harmful and that terrorism is so devil, they should kill that kind of thing. that kind of things. In such situation, like they don't have enough information or like true information, accurate information. That is right. But also like, but secondly, also they don't have the experience of the intervention, right? Such as like. They don't experience the words itself, and they cannot understand the long-term consequence, right? For example, like in the Vietnam War, Americans thought like it's easy war, but the Vietnam War cost a lot of money and it cost a lot of people, right? In such situation, we think. In such situation, we think like citizens is not a best actor to decide that kind of things. So why those kind of situations, like deciding the military intervention, is harmful? Why? Two reasons, two cases. Firstly, that people don't approve the necessary military intervention, right? First, why those people don't allow? Because the people think that war itself is very negative thing. Like for example, like when Iraq war, many people died. Such situation, like they cannot, such situation, they actually hesitate to approve that kind of military intervention. We think that kind of situation is so harmful because they cannot solve the problem which we have to solve as USA or something like that, such as like North Korean problems, right? We have to solve those kind of problems. And right now, right? Because if we remain as North Korea in current situation, like they can create the atomic bombs and which can lead to America, right? Reach to America, right? We think that kind of situation is so harmful. But second case is that radical approval is occur. Even if radical approval occur, we think that kind of situation is so problematic. Why is that? Because for example, like terrorism occurred in some countries, and American people thought they are devil, so that emotionally they decide to military intervene. Okay.
The people's irrationality or the information scarcity does not justify deprivation of a democratic right, because even uneducated people can vote for the election.
We think that especially the case of military intervention, which is very important, which actually cause a lot of harm after in the long term. We think citizens' idea is not important, so important. Sorry, the terrorism occurred and the emotional decide. In such situation, we think there's still possibility to talk with the country still remain, but they actually approve that kind of military intervention, and that's so problematic because many people die. That kind of situation is so harmful. So why the president or government deal with those problems? We think the president is the best can have the capacity to decide those kind of military intervention, right? Why is that? Because they have information among their of information, but which is not distorted by the media, which is accurate information touched by the government itself, right? But also like president or government have experience that from the past century they have information those and the history of experience of military intervention, right? That's why they can decide the better way. But also like a discussion which is focused on military intervention actually can done efficiently in the parliament. But also like they have a big responsibility for the decision, right? That is why they actually consider a very good decision for the military intervention for the citizens. That is why we propose this motion.
I thank Ero for your speech. Now we call upon DPM here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The assumption coming from the open opposition is that there is always necessary and clear military intervention. This assumption is totally wrong under the United Nations Charter, which prohibits the countries to carry out the military intervention or enforcement of weapons toward other countries. which only restrict to self-defense. Under such regime, why we can say always there is necessary intervention or something like that. That's why my job is, first of all, I can ensure you that the military intervention itself is really, really exceptional under the today's world international order. That's why even if we dismiss the dismiss the chance to carry out military intervention, it's not so problematic in the first place. Second of all, I can talk about why. Second of all, I can talk about the comparison between their paradigm that the president such as Trump will carry out the war against North Korea or war against Syria or something like that can be what can be the result of this kind of situation, and also compare this kind of situation with our side paradigm future that the concept war consented from the citizens. What is the consequence that in these cases? Before moving to my first issue, I have several rebuttal against the previous speaker. Yes.
Before the presidential election, already vast majority
yes,
of
okay.
citizens
yes.
know
I'd
that
like to
Trump
mention
would
that
like to
yes.
start the war. Why the additional referendum is necessary?
Yes. Okay. I can talk about in the first issue, so please wait for it. I can talk about firstly. Refutation against the previous speaker. Previous speaker told us as if the nation's people are irrational, therefore we should not let people to decide what should we do. That's why we should not take motion. First of all, in the first place, we are happy to disclose the true and correct information simply because the government is the biggest actor who gather or collect the information about military intervention or these international relationships. That's why we are happy to disclose, open this information. Second of all, if we deny such kind of nation's voices in the first place, we cannot stand on the democracy, right? If we respect the democracy's idea that even if the result might be wrong, we respect the majority of the society. Under such occasion, why they deny the referendum itself. Third of all, in the case of the terrorism, we face the counter discourse that Islamic people have their own thought. Under such occasion, that it's really difficult to consider that to hit upon that all media are distorted to only one way, no discourse, and only specific one way, and carry out some specific kind of idea. That's why I think that. Rationality is not so a good criteria to decide. And even if they are not rational, the people can at least accept the result of the war. That as my partner clearly told you, the war or military intervention costs too much and kill many people. In terms of this point, the previous speaker told no people die and people never ever suffer simply because artificial weapon is really prevail or something like that. Even under such occasion, those who manage or those who have to those who back up these machines or things should be necessary. And also in terms of military intervention, the vast majority of the power is still composed of human resources. Under such occasion, under the really belligerent terms, the government will have the special system that is that we require citizens to participate in the war. That's why under the Vietnam War, the many normal citizens had to participate in these wars, and even if they are not dead in the war, they have to suffer from the psychological assault, especially PTSD is really harmful among even American soldiers. That's why we think that we should be really careful about decision about it. Then they said presidency is really perfect and they are really perfect decision maker. However, if we look at Trump, it's not true, right? Why is it? The reason here. The reason is that time lag exists between the presidential election and the carrying out. It's not always the same time that presidential election and when to carry out military intervention. Under such occasion, the differentiation between the nation's voice and the president must occur even under status quo. Even if Donald Trump is elected, many people do not think we should have war against North Korea or something like that. Under such occasion, ensuring the nationality of president is also doubtful. Under such occasion, what should be done? Then we have to think about the exceptionality of military intervention in national order. Sorry. First of all, why the military intervention itself is really exceptional. First of all, sovereignty in this society or this international order is sacred one, which is ensured through many years, simply because if this insurance, people, nation or country cannot ensure the sustainability of this society. Because of the security of sovereignty, that they can be sure that they are not be attacked by other country, even if China expand their territory to many places, that Japan can be ensured that China is to some extent respect the sovereignty. That's why China directly do not intervene to Japan. Under such occasion, military intervention itself should be really exceptional. Second of all, what the difficulty in deciding what is holy battle or something like that. When we look at Iraq War or Vietnam War, in terms of Vietnam War, they thought like, communist is really terrible, so we should intervene. Without intervention, Vietnam will be communist party or something like that. However, the result tells us that intervention itself is wrong. In that occasion, we can say that the decision of holy battle is totally difficult. That's why the military intervention itself is really exceptional. That's why even if we dismiss the chance to military intervene, it's not problematic, simply because it's exceptional and we should not take it necessary. Then, as for that, okay, that's why from these reasons we have to consider deeply, and also even if we dismiss the result, the problem is not so big, and also the result of their paradigm is like imposing too much burden on the shoulder of the citizen, including normal people and armies, and also the reputation from the international society. Under such occasion, we do not casually carry out military intervention. That's why I think that the only one person's decision is not proper. That's why we strongly support. Thank you.
I thank DPM for your speech. Now we call upon the yellow here.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of the consequence of the military intervention, the referendum is not the correct way, because the citizen cannot be accountable for the consequence. However, ourselves have, when the president or the politician can be accountable for this decision. That's why, Mr. Speaker, we believe that we take the indirect democracy in support. So to rebuttal to the opening government. One, they say in the after the military intervention, if this decision is wrong, but however, as a democracy, we respect this consequence. No, we never respect its consequence, because the difference to the other kinds of decision, for example, the economic policy, but this economic policy, if once failed, it's also the recoverable in the first place. But actually, military intervention is a problem of the life. We never wrong this decision. So military intervention also has the possibility to kill some people or injure some people, or sometimes it imposes the responsibility to the member of the armed force, right? That's why, Mr. Speaker, as long as it's a cost of very a lot, and also this citizen cannot be accountable for this wrong decision, right? Such times also this decision should be by this accountable person. Number two, the difference to the citizen and the president is very easily. Also, the president or politician also have the accountable, because sometimes if decision is wrong, also these kind of people are easily criticized by the international society. Sometimes the people, these kind of people have to quit the job with the insult in the first place. But actually, in the citizen, if some citizen is a referendum, take the referendum, also this decision will be wrong. However, all the vast majority of the people cannot be criticized by the other kind of the thing. If sometimes the many military people die, however, also the citizen can easily live in the daily life, right? That's why, Mr. Speaker, we believe that different citizens, these are representative, also kind of daily citizen cannot be accountable for the decision. That's why, Mr. Speaker, this is very important. Secondly, say the problem is that the difference of the voice of the president and the citizen is the problem. But actually, it's not the problem. Number one, basically the president also have the incentive to care about the citizen's voice, because if they easily ignore the voice of the citizen, also they also have time to criticize or sometimes assault in the many kind of the way. And second of all, even though the citizen also president cannot know the many kinds of people, however, also the president has the room to consult with many kinds of public officer or other kinds of specialists in the first place. That's why, Mr. Speaker, at least even without this kind of voice, also the president and the public officer can have the possibility to make the better decision compared to the citizen. That's why, Mr. Speaker, we believe that if the cost is so important, we have to depend this decision for the president. Yes.
How do you explain the amendment of the constitution, even though the nations are not specialists of law or constitution?
Okay, this is the constitutional amendment. Why is the difference to the military intervention? Because if once the constitution is amended, but this influence just for the citizen, right? That's why, Mr. Speaker, it's a very this is a citizen problem. For example, if in Japan in the Article 9 in the gender, sometimes they have to join to the military. However, such time also this influence to the citizen, right? But actually, the military intervention is an international problem. Sometimes this decision is not only influence for the citizen, but also the other kind of the actor. That's why, Mr. Speaker, most accountable people have to take the decision. Two extension from the opposition leader, deputy opposition leader. Number one, in terms of the cost directly crush to the opening government, our side is better. Number one, the opening government say the out of the cost the military intervention, they have to kill the for example, the member of the people, member of the military arm have to kill the other kind of people. But actually, it's not. But actually, it's most important thing. Why this cost can be decreased by using the referendum. We believe that in the characterization of the citizen, is basically the citizen is not a critical citizen, is not have the knowledge about this military intervention. For example, me, I can't know the problem of Syria. I can't know the problem of Angola in the first place because it's apart from the daily life. However, the oppositely, the president is the job to focus on this problem. That's why in the basically the president or many kinds of politicians have the incentive to gather about this problem in the first place. Also, even though some people cannot get the job, such time also the other kind of the cooperator, for example, the specialist, the public officer can easily cooperate with this president. However, citizens don't have the room to consult with this public officer because basically the many kinds of funashi also going to the gaimusho. However, this citizen cannot consult with these kind of elitist people, right? However, the president can be easily consult with this kind of elitist people, right? That's why, Mr. Speaker, we believe that in terms of the capacity of the considering, the citizen is not the actor to decide this military intervention. Number two, when does a referendum can be justifiable? We believe that this only when this decision is accountable for the citizen. So we already say, for example, the constitutional amendment and the independence of the EU, in the case of the UK. Also, why this is also justifiable? Because in the future, this decision is only the influence, basically, the only influence for the UK citizens. For example, if this opt out of the UK, sometimes the young people can't get a job in the UK easily. Such time also, this harm from the opt out and the benefit from the opt out is also influenced for this citizen. That's why, Mr. Speaker, this is
justifiable. However, Mr. Speaker, the military intervention imposed another kind of people, imposed the burden to another kind of people, especially the military armed member. That's why, Mr. Speaker, citizens cannot be accountable for this decision. Number two, they say also even the uneducated people, they can choose the representative. Yes, this is an indirect democracy. We already guarantee the form of the democracy as an indirect democracy. However, Mr. Speaker, in our side of the house, the people cannot, the uneducated people, not the elected people, cannot decide this is the policy. Only when the people who are representative can take the policy in the first place. That's why, Mr. Speaker, as long as in the indirect democracy already function, we also support that this indirect democracy. That's why we think that this motion is a false. Thank you.
I thank the yellow for your speech. Now we call upon MG here.
Thank you, Chairperson. OG has successfully told you that principally the citizens have right to actually choose because it actually affects people no matter the consequences. But we say our side are going to take this point that the consequences would be better for citizens and other people who are suffering for the war. That is why we are proud to propose this motion. So yes. So first of all, I'm going to talk about whether the citizen government is the best actor to actually tackle the problem, or citizens are worse character or not. So let me first revert to the the characteristics of citizens. The reason coming from why they are irrational, the reason coming from OO has some parts already rebutted by OG, and I will refute and completely break their cases. So firstly, the left reason is like citizens think war is bad, so they hate to approve. They just hesitate. They are so stupid. But that's the only character exists in their side of the house, right? Because in our side of the house, if we disclose all the information and tell the citizens that this military intervention is actually its purpose to help citizens who are suffering in other countries. In this occasion, we don't think that people is actually suddenly so stupidly hesitate to take these choices. So so this is already breaking. Okay, secondly, we couldn't hear why government is actually best actor. As the OG continuously say, then give you a case of like Vietnam War, like that's the decision that made by government, but still there are so many innocent citizens are sacrificed, and and as consequence they couldn't get anything better, but like just sacrifice innocent citizens in Vietnam, killing so many people. In this occasion, in opening up, they could never. So the premise of OO is that government is the best actor and citizens are more inferior actor to actually calculate. This point is already not standing. But clear contribution outside of that. From now on, I will explain how that check and balance system is actually going to exist only in our side of the house. So check and balance system will be exclusively benefit in our side. Why is that? So in government side, this is the citizens' responsibility to actually choose. And right to intervene is actually on the hand of citizens, right? In this occasion, their side of the house, citizens will be not responsibly think about the situation and just criticize the consequence. When it goes bad, they criticize government. When it goes right, they don't say nothing because they just are following the government. So so we are going to prove to you that this is far better than the status quo by taking this system. First, we can let citizens to aware and consider about the problem which is actually affect to entire citizens, as OG said. Like we are going to give them like democratic. The problem is exists in society. In democratic country we have to consider that and let them aware about that problem. So first benefit is that we will let them aware and consider about the problem. And second benefit is that in the status quo, information is not will disclosed, but after in our side of house, government incentive to conduct and like mitigate, try to conduct a military intervention which is less victimized, less risking like other people which may be maybe opposed by citizens' morality will not be occur. Why is that? Like because those information is disclosed to citizens, so that government are always checked by citizens. In this occasion, the government shouldn't just crazily conduct because of efficiency or those things. They will consider many factors like morality or those other factors. So in this occasion, more clear strategy, not just seeking for profit of government or those things, but considering the morality, which is very important in order to save people's life or care about the sacrification of citizens. And secondly, like less victimized as the government will more consider about the strategy or military intervention, as they have to disclose the information towards citizens. And if the citizens oppose, they will not be able to conduct any military intervention. They are afraid, and yes, so they will just, the government will have strong incentive to actually mitigate unnecessary sacrification and victimization. And secondly, because of the check and balance system, like if the government go wrong, just seeking like prioritize their own profit, like Vietnam War, killing so many unreasonable number of citizens, like citizens, those citizens actually have right to actually control it. That is why next time when the government are going to conduct that things which actually against the morality, they can actually stop by themselves. So the practical harms that may occur by the consequences can be prevented and then gradually mitigated, and government will change their stance.
In times of the referendum, why the citizens suddenly get the room to consider about many kinds of strategies?
Because that is all, the right is actually on the hand of citizens. And before, it's only government are just doing so. But now, like your one vote actually affects the entire decision of country. Whether you have right to whether you will kill someone or maybe you will not intervene by military intervention. In this point, we say clearly people will have consider the point. So okay. So comparison, our side has told you, like CEO has told you that this check and balance system can actually practically have right to stop when the government actually maybe drive crazy or do the prioritize efficiency or those things. We actually have right to actually prevent and gradually to change and improve the situation by giving autonomy. So we say our side is much better. Thank you.
I thank MG for your speech. Now we call upon more here.
'Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, we do not automatically support the war itself. But if we conduct a war, we should consider the consequences rather better. That kind of the consequence should be upheld by the technocracy or the administration, which is a representative of the citizen. That's why we are happy to stand here as closing opposition to protect the consequence of the military intervention rather better. So two extensions from member of opposition and a closing opposition. Firstly, when the referendum can be passed and skipped through the process of the decision making of the state itself, which is directly class the case coming from the opening government and which failed to coming from approved coming from the opening opposition about in terms of the philosophy, in terms of the philosophical decision and characterization of the citizen itself. So secondly, I can examine why under closing government, which is direct class to the closing government paradigm in terms of the check and balance system, why the citizen have no capability to consider about the check and balance. So when the check and balance system can be done, based on their assumption is about the citizen have the capability to consider the current context and after the military intervention, what's done. I can examine two case analysis here. But before that, simple refutation to the opening government and government bench cases itself. So the government benches talk to you about it is hugely cost, especially coming from the open government, about the citizens' right will be endangered. It is totally doubtful in terms of the military intervention because as open opposition clearly talk to you, the Syria is very far from the United States of America. That's why if the United States of America start to the military intervention to the Syria, why the innocent citizens' life is in the first place are endangered? No analysis coming from the opening government itself later. So in terms of on that analysis, who will be the victim of the military intervention? It is simply the military and militant officer or the military executive or the innocent is a soldier itself. Those soldiers already concede to the potential death when the military intervention happened, when the national defense happened in the first place. They talked about the PTSD will happen. PTSD does not become the criteria to hold the referendum itself. They never proved their burden in the first place. And also, the entire government bench's failure is about they mysteriously believe democracy is perfect and democracy is important. Why the democracy is important in the first place? No reasoning and explanation coming from them. Because that, for example, the developmental dictatorship can be the better consequences for the economical development for every individual's life within the developing country itself. That's why in terms of those points, what government have to prove is about as a burden, why the democracy can override the decision of the technocracy at all. No comparison coming from today's government benches itself. So other refutation will be included throughout. So firstly, when the referendum can be skipped and passed, even if you consider the best case scenario of side opening government about if we release the perfect information and if the citizens have the opportunity to access the all information which is provided by the government. Two reasons why. Firstly, two metrics. First metric is about the technicality of the military intervention. So the citizens are incapable to consider the consequence and the process of the military intervention itself, because the military intervention is very difficult to understand how the military will invade and what kind of the opponent military will invade. Let's consider about the Syrian government and anti-Syrian, and also the Russian military and also the American military is very complex to solve the problem at all. That's why the citizen, even citizens have enough information to not think that citizen calculation is very hindered because in terms of the military, the citizen is less calculate under that. And secondly, and about and also about the citizens are incapable to understand how the diplomatic relationship will change after the military intervention. We've done that because that military intervention not only the national problem but also the international problem. That's why the citizen cannot cater about how the diplomatic relationship between the United States and Russia will change itself. In comparison, the technocrats will rather better because the technocrats is a professional to consider about the diplomatic relationship with the United States or Russia itself because they have the personal negotiation with other politician or the other officer itself. That is rather better itself. On to my second metric about urgency. urgency is already important point, as already also Prime Minister conceded about the national defense. The reason why national defense can pass a referendum is about it is an immediate problem at all. Why this the military intervention can apply the urgency itself? Because even if we take the best case of the OG, citizens rationally consider the consequences. Holding the referendum during the humanitarian crisis in and of itself assault the dignity of the person who are infringed and victimized under the context of the military, under the context of the humanitarian crisis will random. What do I mean by that? Because holding the referendum during the humanitarian crisis needs a tons of the time to discuss and about the disclosing the information and discussion happened by the politician and also the citizen. Those grassroots movement have to consider the 1 month or the 2 months or the tons of the months or the time consuming itself. Why time consuming is so problematic? Because to wait the 1 month or the 2 months, the vulnerable citizen children are killed by the chemical weapon and also the women are raped by the other innocent other military itself. It is hugely devastated the human right itself. Sorry, opening.
Another international relationship, we respect the sovereignty of each country. Why intervention itself is a principle, and we should originally we have to do it.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what is an exclusive difference on the government and opposition side itself. And secondly, a second extension, how the citizens are cannot capable about check and balance and consider the long-term benefit and all. Two cases I want to examine. Firstly, the politician also start the negative campaign. Politician and anti-war politicians start to negative campaign to discriminate and criticize what the administration would like to start do that. That's why the vast majority of citizens does not want to die in terms of the characterization of the citizen. That's why those hesitation of the citizen directly stop the war itself. It is rather hinder the necessary intervention at all. Secondly, the radicalized discourse rather convert the citizen to sway to vote, go to the national referendum at all. Because the Iraq cases, why the Iraq intervention happened is about the politician and administration said the Iraq is a country of the terrorism. That's why we have to tackle down and penetrate their country at all. From that point, even if we take the best case, any cases of the national referendum, those referendum consequences will lead to the harmful. For all reasons, we are very proud to oppose the policy.
I thank MO for your speech. Now we call upon Gaba Vip. Here.
They're talking about humanitarian wars, right? What we say on the closing government today is that there are many unnecessary wars fought in the status quo, and there are also many unnecessary casualties of war in the status quo. For example, like the disaster that happened in Vietnam, where the US government killed many civilians. That hasn't changed in the status quo. Now even in the status quo, in Afghanistan, these places, many civilians, hundreds of civilians are still killed because of drones and these kind of things. We believe this is just because of a crucial lack of accountability to the government and of supervision of the government. We believe on the closing government, by shifting the final decision to the citizens, the government will have they cannot escape from actually satisfying what the citizens really want. And if they make some mistakes, if they are really bad to these citizens or cause death of innocent civilians, they will not be able to fight any wars in the future. We believe that does trigger these governments to fight just wars and proportionate wars, which are incredibly important, because we believe these casualties in these wars are as bad as the victims of humanitarian wars. And we believe that helps for now and the future. Now, two things I want to talk about. First of all, I want to talk about now, I will present that that we want, what kind of system we want. A system where the government is accountable and supervised, and why we can decrease these unnecessary wars, unnecessary victims of wars, and why this is so important. And second of all, like the opposition side is trying to say, why it does not hamper our ability to fight necessary wars, while we will still be able to intervene in these humanitarian wars and like that. But before that, independent rebuttals to the opposition side. Now, first of all, to the whole opposition side, today they're talking about the calculus and these kind of things. But the very premise of this is that they have to show us what kind of necessary wars we are waging in the first place, right? We never really see what kinds of necessary wars that exist in the status quo and that are waged. We believe many wars are actually unnecessary and not necessarily to be fought. But furthermore, what the closing opposition tried to say today is that the citizens are not capable of making this calculus of calculating all the elements that are intricately involved in this war, right? But what we say is obviously on our side we have full, we can make disclosure of this information, and as a government we are also fully possible to explain, to say to the citizens, these are the kinds of benefits, these are the kind of harms. If we intervene, we might get better, like a relationship with this and that, right? Based on this, the citizens obviously can make the decision. We believe even if they know that the government said when we intervene we can make better things, and still they say no, we believe that is a legitimate decision, even if the outcome might be practically better, because these people decided, by knowing the practical benefits, still said no. We believe that is what a decision is. Okay.
Yeah. If citizens have the capacity to distinguish the necessary and unnecessary, why U.S. citizens chose Donald Trump or the Ryoso Cup?
We see that obviously people see these kind of Donald Trump. We don't necessarily people elect Donald Trump because they wanted war. Maybe they elect them because of his policies and these kind of things, right? Because of certain things. We believe citizens, obviously, as you've seen, humanitarian, like Hotel Rwanda, or these kind of things. Citizens were compelled against these and to stop these kind of things. Or in the case of Vietnam, these massacres, people saw that. Every citizen was against it. Obviously, people can see that these mass slaughters. So another thing, okay. Now moving on to the first point today about these and what we say on the closing argument. So what we say is there will be less unnecessary wars and more just wars on our side of the house. But that's important, extremely important in the status quo, because right now what we have is extremely dangerous weapons, right? Like drones and weapons of mass destruction, or weapons you can secretively destroy many kinds of people. And as we have seen in Afghanistan, there have been used drones to actually also have many collateral damage and killing of many civilians, hundreds of civilians, as we have seen. And we believe this is something unacceptable, but this still happens because the government, in the end, has not enough check and has not enough accountability. Well, we believe this also, especially because there's a trend that in the past governments has done these kind of things and have these collateral damages, and people kind of see as they don't really have a choice, that governments are actors who actually do these kinds of things, right? But what we have then on our side, what we can bring uniquely to this debate is, because the ultimate decision will be up to the civilians, to the individuals, the government necessarily has to satisfy the citizens, has to show them that they are in a clean war, a war where they do not have these collateral damages, right? They have to show them that they are doing proportionate wars, that they're doing necessary wars, and also having discretion in not killing those kinds of civilians, which we believe is extremely important. But furthermore, what we believe is that there will be a shift in responsibility. Because in the status quo, it is like that the government is, even if there are these atrocities or these bad wars happening, what we say is many citizens think of it, there's no use, we can't do anything. Its responsibility is of the government, but we cannot change the system, right? Because but what we say in our paradigm is a shift of responsibility. Because now, ultimately, you are the individual who makes a decision whether you intervene or not. So you have to think deeply about whether actually you intervene or not, because the blood of these children in these countries might be on your hands. And we believe in these kinds of situations, people will obviously consider these kind of things more and more, and if there's a demand for these kind of things, the media obviously will actually be more in these areas and do more investigation, apply more information to these people. We believe overall there will be better accountability of these governments concerning those issues and interventions. And we believe, therefore, we can evade those kinds of things of mass unnecessary wars, like in Vietnam. There was no use for it and no good outcome, just many incidents of collateral damage. These kind of things. But why are we still able to fight necessary wars, like humanitarian wars? what we say here is that citizens are able and capable of distinguishing humanitarian wars and other unnecessary wars. For example, in cases of Rwanda, we have learned in like societies where there's one extremely strong side and the other side extremely weak or being oppressed, and there are mass slaughters. We have seen that in these kinds of situations, we have to intervene and save those people. We think citizens are capable of understanding those issues. But other cases where it's more difficult and we have more political issues, we believe citizens can see that in cases of Vietnam, it's useless to intervene. So what we say in the closing government are the practical mechanisms that we are proud to propose.
I thank Governor Whip for your speech. Now we're gonna vote for Whip. Here.
Ladies and gentlemen, this debate is not about the particular war is important or unnecessary. This debate is about who is the best place to make decision in terms of military intervention and when we have to utilize the national referendum to make decision, ladies and gentlemen. And we feel the closing opposition uniquely told you who actually the administration or elected government is best place to decide. And also we clearly told you when we actually intervene and why this international military intervention is uniquely technical and urgent issue that also individuals cannot calculate and there's no time to discuss a particular issue. And that is why the opposing opposition clearly takes the debate. Before anything, I'd like to criticize all three teams with lack of uniqueness. So first, from the opening government, they talk about, well, because there's a huge influence to the population, and that is why we have to do national referendum. But we heard no uniqueness whatsoever to the military intervention, because we already told you from the opening opposition that any kind of policy can affect the entire population hugely, ladies and gentlemen. There is no uniqueness from the opening government, and also from closing of government saying that, well, there's a criticism that people should be responsible. But again, there is no uniqueness in terms of military intervention, ladies and gentlemen. Any kind of policy would be criticized. Any kind of policy should be responsible for citizens. And also opening opposition, right? They talk about the information distortion, which is not unique to the military intervention whatsoever, because this is something always happen in the general election in the first place. And also they talk about incapability of democracy or national referendum, and there's no uniqueness whatsoever of the military intervention, which always happen, ladies and gentlemen. We think that this because lack of uniqueness, but we from the closing option uniquely told you the nature of the military intervention in terms of it is extremely complicated and technical issue that the technocrats need to discuss, and also we uniquely told you this is a particularly urgent issue that we need a quick decision in terms of by the administration and by the parliament, and that's why our team is actually best in this debate, have this best uniqueness. So move on to my issues, right? I like to first of all talk about when actually we can intervene in terms of to conduct a national election. I like to deal with the opening government issue. Second, I talk about the actors' comparison between citizens and the administration and the parliament, and why it's better to uniquely engage the closing government. So first, about when we actually intervene. So we heard from the opening government saying that, well, because they're huge influence, but again, there's no uniqueness, right? They simply assert that it's a huge, but that's criteria is huge, it's completely arbitrary, and we don't understand the uniqueness of it. They talk about the constitution and the election is still conducted by national referendum, but the reason why these are possible is precisely because those citizens can understand the general concept, the general principle behind the law codes constructed, or behind the country, the construction of the country itself. Also, it's the citizens are capable to understand what kind of person candidates is in the first place, or what kind of policy that particular political party is supporting, things like that, right? In terms of this, we think that these kind of things that those citizens can actually understand. But on the other hand, this in military intervention, we have like many kind of strategic information and many kind of complicated like interests between like many kind of actors within the international community. We have many like military ally relationship, and we have like many kind of economic in terms of economic interest or long-term stability or power balances between like many kind of nations. In this kind of context, we think that we don't understand those citizens actually capable of analyzing these kind of important information in the first place. But secondly, they all talk about why they need to be careful. The problem is they never substantiate why this way of being careful is beneficial for the first place, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's it for the opening government, and the reason why opening government cannot take this debate in the first place. Move on to nothing from opening. Actors comparison. So closing government says that well, under their paradigm, less citizens will die. But first, we say we don't understand why those government or administration has incentive to kill people in the first place, ladies and gentlemen. No logic behind that. Second, they also say they never explain the mechanism behind the reason why, or decision-making process behind the reason why those citizens are less likely to kill other people, less likely to go into war. But third of all, we don't understand why we just say the particular war is necessary or not. For example, Vietnam War, right? It's actually like there's a huge kind of casualty and actually extremely notorious war for citizens. But on the other hand, like when the U.S. intervened to the Vietnam,